This is where we belong.
All right, welcome to the Grinnell Newburgh School Foundation We Belong Here podcast. This is episode number 4, and my special guest today is Kevin Hosbon, Grinnell High School English teacher, speech advisor, speech coach, anything that I could probably add to it. First of all, I just want to say welcome, Kevin. Nice to have you on the podcast. I got to visit with you a long time ago, 2018-19, when I first met you. My oldest son, Blake, was in large group speech, and, of course, Tyler was in your class. But when it's all said and done, you know, there's many newspaper articles that have been floating around, Facebook posts. The high schools posted some stuff on Twitter. And I brought you in today to talk about your large group speech kids. And in doing so, there's maybe a lot of people that don't know who Kevin Hosbon is. Mm-hmm. So first of all, as I said, welcome. And let's start with the basics. Where did Kevin grow up, and a little bit about your background?
Great. Well, thank you for having me on the show today. So I actually, surprisingly to a lot of kids, they think I grew up far away in a big city or something. But I grew up just down the road in Prairie City, out in the country, and we raised horses out there, which also puts a lot of shocked faces on the students when they hear that. But yeah, I went to PCM High School, and then after that, I went to Iowa State for I went for engineering actually, and then I ended up getting a little bit smarter in my choices, and I changed my major to what I loved. My old speech coach, Linda Perrineau, said, hey, why don't you just do what makes you happy? So I switched majors and became a speech and theater major with an English endorsement so that I could teach all of those things.
Which, at Iowa State, there's not a whole lot of teachers that come out of Iowa State.
Not too often. That's exactly right. Most people go there for engineering or for vet school or things like that. In fact, I was one of the last. There were 4 of us in the speech program, and then it got soaked up into the English program after that. So we would mostly meet in our professor's office and kind of hang out there. That's where a lot of our coursework became independent study. So I volunteered at my old high school and got like 4 credits throughout the year, which was kind of cool. I was doing like 18 to 22 credits per semester by doing that.
Well, I had a feeling that as you start to talk about your past, there's going to be some names we're going to benchmark. And Linda's one of the names that we're going to benchmark.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about Linda here in a little bit of how things come full circle. Mm-hmm. And I think that's pretty special, too. Start teaching at. So where was your first teaching job?
So my first teaching job was in Fairfield, and I spent my time there teaching English 9. Actually, I had a whole host of courses, mostly freshman English and speech courses, a lot of other like composition, advanced speech, and we added a theater class right before I left there. But I was at Fairfield for 16 years before we moved up here to Grinnell.
And Grinnell was, so when you're a teacher, you obviously 16 years, you're kind of thinking decision-making time.
Yeah.
Am I going to make the case and say, I'm going to retire at this school, or make the jump? What was it that made you think, let's make the jump to go to Grinnell, Iowa?
Right. I had always planned to retire there and then get on the school board and who knows what else. But here we were, as a lot of schools are facing budget cuts, and they had gone through several pretty difficult cuts, and a lot of those involved my wife's job, Alicia Caritas. She was teaching elementary art in the Fairfield area and in the Fairfield School District, and that was going to cause a little bit of pain because they were cutting positions. My speech position was an assistantship, so that often was on the chopping block, and every year, right at the last second, they would save it, but it just got to be a little bit too much, and her job was going to get cut again. So Liz Hansen, who I have known since I was like 14 years old because she was friends with my coach Linda, one year she had told me, I think we were at Allstate. She said, I'm going to retire and you should take over for me. I just kind of laughed it off. Yeah, right, Liz, that's never going to happen. Well, she called up and said, hey, it's happening. There's an opening. So we talked about it. My wife and I, Liz said, why don't you just come up and tour the school? So we came up and met Liz and Mike Hunter, and we toured the school. And as soon as we went back in the car, my wife said, you have to apply. So, we had a lot of nights filled with tears on both sides, and like each day we were like, we should move, we should not move, but in the end, here we are. So that happened in 2017.
That's what I was going to say. I think 2017 is when Liz, so Blake would have had her for 3 years, going through all of the same stuff that we're going to dive into with large group speech.
Yeah.
And then you came in on his senior year, which to come in as a speech teacher, I would say that you probably stopped and looked and said, holy cats, what a group of kids.
Yeah.
Not putting my son but just the group of kids that were sitting here so mature in speech.
Yeah.
And you probably just had eyes wide open, say, wow.
It was a really nice group to come into. That first year it was different because I'm not Liz, and I shook things up just a little bit. I didn't want to change things too much, but I think we went through. I made students audition, and everybody got. They all got something, and most got what they wanted, but some got put in places in different groups they weren't maybe thinking. And we had some conversations about that, and I can point things out like, hey, look at all the other students. I haven't known you very long, but look at all the talent that I can tell is in this group. Kind of like re-envisioning the different groups that kids were being put into versus what they were used to doing maybe in the past.
Right. So okay, now we're at it'd be the 2018-19 school year. Would be
I started 17-18.
17-18. So as the class that you, I don't want to say inherited, but you started teaching which class here at Grinnell?
So what do you mean like by?
So is it ninth?
So ninth, yeah. So I teach ninth grade here, mostly ninth grade, but I have a little bit of senior capstone every now and then. We have a speech class, and we also added a theater class here as well. Last year was our first year for that. But I spend most of my time with freshmen. And a really funny story this year, one of my students said, Mr. Hosbon, teaching freshmen is going to be your villain origin story. So, well, 24 years of that, we'll see.
Well, to go back to, I refer to Blake a lot, but Tyler has good praise from you because he was not by far a great English student. And he said, Mr. Hosbon makes things fun and always gives an interesting twist to it that
Cool.
makes you want to, learn and think outside of the box. So from a parent, when Lori and I hear that, it's like, yes, Tyler's getting something.
Yeah,
and,
thank you.
And he succeeded and he did well, but sometimes it takes the different teacher, and I'm not saying you're different, but someone new from the outside to come and change things up.
Yeah.
Just like you said, it might have been a little bit different from those who had it before, but
Right, yeah.
it was refreshing to have Tyler say that I get it now, and I enjoy what I'm doing. So if we have the English classes in the daytime, and we all know that every teacher has activities outside of 3 o'clock, 3:15 time zone,
Yeah.
besides for gathering large group speech students and solo speech students, what does that look like from a teacher that you have to juggle things?
It gets pretty crazy. A lot of spouses of speech coaches call themselves speech widows for about 4 months because we put in the time. So typically our rehearsal schedule, we start in October. We do auditions, so everybody that wants to be on the team gets a spot as long as they come in front of us and do a little bit of speaking, moving around, maybe dancing or mime or singing. And then they fill out a ranking sheet of what they're interested in. We put it all together based on their student schedules with work and sports and every other thing they do. And then with our own schedules with my coach, assistant coach Jenny Flintspaw, so there's the two of us, and we usually have about 60 plus students we're managing, and it can be anywhere from 18 to 20 or more groups we're putting together. So we'll rehearse. Usually we start right after the fall play is done, which could be very end of October, very early November. And then we rehearse from about 3:30 till 5:30 to 6 every evening. Our groups are on rotation, so I might have mime every other day, like Tuesday, Thursday, and a choral reading Monday, Wednesday, and then Jenny takes like Reader's Theater and improv and other things. So we just put all these things into a really complex spreadsheet of rotation, and then that's the schedule. And we do that until right about now in middle of February. And then large group will end after the All-State Festival on the 22nd this year.
Well, I mentioned that I would come back to Linda because I know Linda was pretty dear to your heart.
Yeah.
And she come back when you came here.
Yeah.
And she helped with a lot of scheduling, coaching. I think she coached a couple of Blake's different ones that he was on. But,
Yeah.
you know, just touch a minute on, I don't want you to get emotional because sometimes I do, how special Linda was to you.
Yeah, she was pretty amazing. She was what got me into the speech. I mean, I'm still a pretty twiggy guy, but like, there I was, freshman year on the wrestling team. I think I weighed like 89 pounds. I don't know. The wrestling coach said, "You weigh as much as my left leg." So, my brother had done wrestling. I enjoyed, like, the physicality was fun, but a lot of my friends were like, "You got to do speech," and I'm like, I'm too shy. I'm not going to do that. I had done like middle school musicals. And then I remember one day, like, physically being carried into the Miss Paranu's classroom, and they made me do speech, and I ended up quitting wrestling right before the first meet. Sorry, Mr. Jones. But I love that guy. He was a great teacher, and he became the principal later at Colfax many years ago. But anywho, there I was in Linda's classroom, and I got put on the improv team, and we got disqualified the first year. And the second year, disqualified again. But we kicked one of the guys out of that particular group, and then my friend and I went on to state. But she got me into individual speech my sophomore year. I became a little less shy, still twiggy, and I don't know how the lady did it, but she like sat next to me at this desk with her pencil, and I had my pencil, and we were writing every little thing on the paper I was presenting. It was a prose piece, and I went to All-State that year, and like, I guess I was sold after that. So, except for that year and a half when I thought I was going to be an engineer, then Linda, I would still go to conventions and got judge training, and I would talk to Linda every year, and it was like, it's not going well with engineering, and she had said this is what you probably should do, and yeah, she was right. And it was interesting, to follow her footsteps because she taught at PCM and retired, but then she worked with Liz here in individual speech, and I think a little bit in large group. And it was kind of funny, and I got to work with her again. It was really silly because I was her boss. Like, one of the years here, I think she was my assistant for a large group, which was sort of fun. And she passed away, and then my colleague Darian Sloat at the time, who was also my student.
I remember Darian. Yep.
Yeah, he and I took over the individual team, and what's really cool is Linda was later inducted into the IHSSA, Iowa High School Speech Association Hall of Fame. And I was selected to be the person who introduced her. So at the big convention that we do in October, I got to speak at the big banquet, which is really cool. It's always fun to watch everybody and think how great they are when they speak, and then to get to be that person is really cool. And I got to honor her, and her daughter accepted the award, and it was a pretty special moment. A lot of tears in the room that night. Yeah.
Well, and the reason I bring Linda up is because I think it's a focus on kind of what this podcast is about, and why you're sitting here is because when we say we belong here, it's a teacher that is, it's been led by other teachers and other influencers, and now you're turning the role and doing the same thing to younger youth that I'm sure you're influencing. I know that you influenced my son in what he does today, that you could give back. So I just think that's really cool. That's a step of outside of Grinnell High School, but it is here and why you're here today.
Yeah, and it's really neat. I have, like, Miss Flinspaw is my former student. And people joke, are you trying to get all your former students to work here? And, I just trust them. And it's really neat. I have a lot of former students who are coaches now in speech. I'll see them at state contest, and I don't hear it very often, but I did have a student this year say, I want to do what you do. And I've been thinking the last few years, teacher shortages, they say, and I haven't heard kids say they want to do what I do, but it's starting to happen again. So I tell them, good, because I need more competition.
Well, it's definitely it's a positive vibe to say that people want to get back into it, and that's a plus.
Yeah.
So now we could talk about what I brought you up here for.
Okay.
Which everything that goes on, in what you do for Grinnell High School is great, and I think every teacher what they could give back, and we've had many many that we could bring up here and talk about more. But as of large group speech, so on January 25th, you took a group of kids up to South Tama for, I call it step one
Yeah.
of competition.
Yep.
You outlined a little bit of all the steps of what it took to get here, and then we got to this point. Tell us what goes on or what happened at South Tama,
Okay.
and then kind of who advanced in a little bit. It's always confusing. You say 19 got Division I rating, but only 6 get to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
give us a little bit of
Kinda how it-
outline of what that's like.
How it all works. Yeah, so IHSSA is split into 4 districts across the state, and then for the district level contest, there are about 4 districts inside each of those. So then host schools, host contests. So we ended up at South Tama. We brought, I think, about 20 groups, which constituted, I think it was like 64 students maybe. So about 64 kids involved in the 20 different types of groups we had. And out of those, we had I'm going to go by memory here. I think we had one short film that got a Division II, so they didn't advance, and then all the other groups did advance to the state contest. It was really neat, the 9th grade film that didn't advance. Those kids were so committed, and like they made edits to their film so many times, and I'm like, they learned a lot. They're ready for next year, so I know they're going to stick with it, and that's kind of the point. So then, yeah, the rest of our groups all made it out of South Tama. Your alma mater, right? Yep,
that's true.
There we went, and thank you, Dixie Forth. She was a really good director and coach there.
Which another senior person, Mary Fossey Shaw,
Oh,
was
yeah.
my teacher, and she actually taught. She probably will listen to this because she follows me on everything. She taught a speech class when I was a senior that actually had credit
Oh yeah.
to college, and that was a long
That's-
time ago. But she
Yeah.
kind of broke me out of my shell. That actually, last thing I wanted to do was stand up and talk in front of anybody.
Yeah.
But she is a great person, and I
She's-
know that
yeah.
she now judges quite a bit. So
She does. She's an amazing person. I've known her as long as I've known Liz. She's been influential to me as well, as was her co-coach there, Gary Zmolek, too.
yes.
So just all these great. I love the Central Iowa coach vibe. So yeah, we went. Our next step was the state contest at Cedar Rapids, Washington, this year, and that's kind of the big one. District is important to us. We say it's our most important because that's your cutoff. You either make it or you don't, and then it could be over for your season right then, or you could advance. And then state suddenly becomes our most important contest because for that one, you have 3 judges, and there's the all-state nomination process as well. And out of the 19 groups, we had 15 who all got a Division I, and then 4 who received a Division II. So then the groups that are Division I are eligible for All-State based on if the judges nominate them. 2 out of 3 judges on secret ballot, so they don't communicate about it. And then after the weekend is over, on Monday afternoon, we all hang out in my classroom. We have a little party in there, and nobody spills a single thing on the floor. And we watch the old screen, and we keep refreshing the website, and we were blessed. Once again, we had some really outstanding groups. We had Miss Flintspaugh's Readers Theater and an improv team, and then we had our group mime and solo mime, as well as the choral reading and musical theater Wicked. And the last 2 were non-performing, meaning there's not enough time in the day to perform at All-State, and the groups are ranked. So the ranking was not high enough to get them to performing level, but enough that it's still the same honor of receiving All-State.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to stop you right there because I don't know if every father-son does this, but Blake and I talk every morning. And he goes, "What are you doing this afternoon, Dad?" I go, "Well, I go interview Mr. Osmond." He goes, "Oh," he said, put him on the spot. So this is one
All right.
question.
Okay, I'm ready,
So,
Blake.
Group mine, he said, ask Mr. Hosbon what he has in his back pocket that 3 years in a row he could take a group mine and succeed.
Well, thank you for that question, Blake. You're an amazing guy. I think, one, we don't have to use the voice, right? So, Blake, sorry, you would probably not do so well at mime. You have your specialty. I would say a lot of things. 1, experience. 2, having those amazing students that are just fearless. And then 3, my style of mime, I call it cinematic mime. So I treat the category as film, and everything we do is through the lens of film. So we tell these epic stories with transitions and scenes and characters that move a lot of places, and I always try to push myself. Having taken mime to Allstate almost every year in my career, I always have a voice telling myself, what can I do differently? What magic trick can I show up? So things like cutting off heads, cutting off hands, doing mini mime, flipping people over in chairs, like just crazy ideas. And then the trust of the students to say, yes, we will totally play with that. And we write the stories together, and I think that's important too. It's collaborative from the start. So that was kind of my long-winded answer of, and you know, it's just, I think it's pure luck. It's such a subjective moment to, if you're awarded the banner, it's the critics' thing that they loved the most that day, and I think we just, we had a lot of special things all lining up for us, and it'd be really cool. You know, we have the chance again this year with Group Mime. It'd be really cool because I've got Cora Miller, who has only ever known Critics' Choice in Group Mime. And I don't know a lot of kids in Iowa that can say that about their time in speech. Maybe some of Liz's kids in TV News way back when, or
Right.
Mary's kids or something. But yeah, it could be really cool. No matter what happens, the kids are so excited to be a part of it.
Right. Well, I know when I had Liz up here for our first podcast,
Mhm.
we were joking about the competitiveness
Yeah.
of what kids have, and I said, I actually remember Kevin Hosbon when Blake's group did their radio broadcast,
Mhm.
and we walked out, and you gave me a look like it shouldn't, or whatever the outcome
Yeah.
came out, like you were not happy with it. And she goes, yeah, Kevin is a little bit competitive
sounds
on
funny.
things. But, of course, Blake was very competitive in that whole deal. But
Yeah.
it pushed him to be a better broadcaster what he is
Oh,
today.
Yeah.
And every day he's still it's like on the tip of his head of why
Yeah.
didn't I get that
Yeah.
rating on that.
And it's so interesting. He might like to hear this. When I'm trying to teach kids about something with radio or TV, you know, we have like the old TV news that Blake was in, and I also, you know, we'll find his things from Knoxville. Like, you guys just listen to this voice. And I said, he had that. Gosh, he was in my speech class way back when, if I recall. Sorry, Blake, it's been a while. Yeah, it's like he from the beginning there was something there that he always wanted to develop. I remember, the first day of speech class, I had the kids ask, what are things you want to learn about? And he said, what is the proper rate of speaking for different types of things that you're doing? He was interested in knowing that, and I just thought, that's a really, like,
Deep
kind of
question.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, so he means business.
Well,
Yeah.
he is definitely, if you ever want to use the example of what someone could be at putting their efforts to it,
Yeah.
he has done all of
Absolutely.
that. So Lori and I are definitely proud of him, proud of everything Tyler's done too.
Yeah.
So as the groups are going, give me a little bit of outline of what that Saturday is going to be like for these kids to experience in Ames.
It's so fun. For people who have not been to Ames, it's really exciting and crowded. It's at the Iowa State Center, which is right next to Hilton. So the CY Stevens Auditorium, maybe people have gone to see a show there. It's, take thousands of high schoolers, put them in one space, and then tell them be loud. It's like a little overwhelming. We'll meet all the critics, all the students from the previous year. We'll present the banner. So Cora's going to be our banner page, and they'll get to walk on stage and hold the banner there. And then off we go for the day. And it's like a regular contest setting in that we have a schedule and centers, and we move around from place to place. And you get to go watch, as Linda Perrineau always told us, you get to see the best of the best. So like that's the festival atmosphere that it creates. And we will have, I'm going to try to do the schedule by memory. I know our improv team is at 9 a.m., so we'll go support them. And it's great because you get to see other schools along the way. We'll run over to Cora's solo mime is somewhere in the 9 or 10 o'clock hour. And then we'll do group mime around 12:30-ish. And then the Reader's Theater, I think, is around 1:45 or so. And we'll get to watch some really great performances. We'll spend time. It's really kind of fun. we have special rooms where we warm up, and they just kind of become our like a home, kind of like your podcast. And every time I go to room 254 in the Sheeman building, that's been my place since like 2001 or 2. So it just like the energy's there. So like my mime kids particularly know like that's our spot where we just kind of get into our zone, and we take about 30 to 45 minutes to prepare ourselves before we perform and get ready.
And if I remember right, there's so this is so big that it utilizes every room and auditorium at Sheeman.
Yes.
And we even had one, I think Blake performed in 2 of them, so he was fortunate as a student being 2 at Allstate.
Yeah.
We went downtown to another theater in Ames.
Allstate grew so much. It used to be at Hoover High School. I remember going to Hoover High School for Allstate. Now we go to Iowa State University, and we go to C.Y. Stevens, Fisher Theater, the Sheeman Building, the Alumni Building for the Acting Center. We go downtown for the City of Ames Auditorium for musical theater. And yeah, Blake has performed there. So it's the big time. It's pretty wild. And then at the end of the day, when the Critics Award banners and all the medals are given out to all the All-Staters, it's so crowded that we also use the auditorium in Sheeman as the overflow, and they live stream it over to there so that spectators can watch from there. It's
I remember that Blake's senior year, we had a basketball game here, and Blake's like, "I'm not gonna make it back, Dad." It's like, no problem. So I had left Lori with her sister and her dad, and they couldn't even get into the Stevens Auditorium. They had to go to the Sheeman Building Auditorium and watch it live stream.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely incredible.
The
incredible.
energy is amazing.
And, for the kids to get to this point, there's so many accomplishments as they went along those steps. But to hear, the greatest thing is to say that you got second place, but yet they still don't know that you're number 2 or you're number 3 out of all of these groups.
Yeah.
How big it is. So that's, for your students that are listening, just an FYI that all parents, all teachers are proud of them, of all their accomplishments. So I know that this podcast is going to be Monday. So what we're going to talk about next is, and I'll share it out on our social media because it's a pretty big deal. People could experience this depending on the weather on Saturday the 15th.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to be 50. We're going to hear this on the 17th. But tell us a little bit about, that's everyone. What will have people come and see Saturday night?
We're really hoping for the snow to come early and be really, really short in the number of inches. And I think we're okay. Mr. Kaufman and I have been kind of emailing back and forth, and I'm still moving forward with it at the moment, so I don't want to call it yet because this is an important event for all the kids get to perform, for the community, back for the home again here. So every event will perform, and we run this over 2 centers so that the night doesn't go until 11 p.m. So we'll have all the digital categories, and the acting categories will be in the choir room, and then across the hall in the auditorium will be everything else. And the schedule is set up in such a way that after you watch all the films and radio, if you want to go across the hall to catch something different, so we have like a transition time. So it kind of runs like a contest as well. So for any parents who maybe haven't gone to contests, they can get the idea of like, we're going into different centers and doing that. But it's open to all community members who are not afraid to get out into the cold a little bit this weekend. And it's at 7 p.m. And we have a suggested donation of $5. You can donate 0 or as much as you want at the door, and that's okay. We just want to make it's important that it's available to everybody to attend. So all groups will perform this weekend on Saturday. I guess for me right now, that would be tomorrow night. For those listening, I hope you enjoyed the show.
Exactly.
And the snow was hardly at all. So.
Yes. Well, for the standpoint of the token donation of when you come in the door, for those that did come and watch it Saturday night, if they thought that they didn't donate or whatever, I encourage them all to take a look at the costumes that they're wearing, because if there wasn't enough funds one way or the other, either a student or parent had to help pay for something that they're wearing. And they are neat. I mean, it's
Yeah.
what makes the outfit. You know, it may be something as simple as they had to buy khaki pants and have a
Mhm.
black or brown shirt, but
Yeah.
when you have 7 students all wearing the same thing and being uniform of how they look, plus of what they're saying or what they're
Mhm.
doing, it just makes it that much more. So, you know, if there was an opportunity that someone would say, hey, how else can I help out? Is there a way that they could get back into some funds to donate back to you?
If people are interested in donating, I don't have our. We do have like an online platform that's accepting donations at the moment, but they can probably find that on our Facebook or at our website, which is somewhere out there on the internet.
Would that go back
It's
to
out
the
there.
fine arts?
It would go into the Fine
Okay.
Arts, yeah, the Fine Arts Alliance boosters that we have, and so after the fact, if somebody wanted to write a check or bring in cash to the Fine Arts Alliance, that would be amazing. I mean, just kind of on average, speech team itself costs $3,000 to $4,000 a year, and that's with royalties, so that we don't violate copyright law. That's with registration to pay to get to perform in all these events, and then set pieces, costuming, props, anything that we don't already possess or can't find in other ways, you know, we'll purchase and find like that. So yeah, there's a lot of costs that are involved. And plus, you know, hotel room stays if we need to do those things. Like I'll have to stay for Allstate. Jenny and I have training we go to every year at convention. So those funds all help to support both the students and the coaches for their training as well.
Well, we greatly appreciate everything you do, and you know, for those people that want to, we'll share a link out there so they can actually find that a little bit quicker, and they don't
Yeah.
have to dive as far. But you know, Kevin, I appreciate you taking the time out. I mean, we are probably within 4 minutes that you'll have to get back into the classroom
Oh,
and
darn.
start teaching. But again, you know, on behalf of the We Belong Here podcast, I just want to say thank you for coming up and taking time out of your busy day.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Thanks, Kevin.